what they call the Matrix, I see as the system, it's a corrupt socioeconomic system. But it's led by people who are deeply sick because they've been raised and indoctrinated by their families to be evil and lack empathy.
Witnesses exist and rooms have also been found. Can we talk about what happened at a place of worship of a certain religion in New York? They recently removed mattresses and blood-soaked baby strollers, all under God's command. If you want to get involved or learn more, you can see it.
If you grew up seeing both your father and mother do terrible things in rituals, did you see how they hurt, tortured, or even killed your relatives? Well, did you? You're causing the next generations, especially children watching this, to lack empathy and be able to run major companies without having any kind of remorse when taking risks with the banks or at the political level or with deception or with mass lockdowns. I've made going to vodka, Jordi Wild's place, famous just to avoid showing up with Karles again. After all we learned about Karles and the others.
What's been found out about Karles? I'm out of the loop.
Suarez is in an interview like that, and the interviewer, you have to give that lady her due because she's the boss. Suarez grabs the mic like this, so you can't hear when she asks him, hey, did you vote on monarchy or republic when the European Union asked for it? The cameraman not counting the camera. Suarez says, we told them and Europe we voted. But since the votes and polls we were doing showed that the monarchy was losing, we put it in the constitution and told the European community that it had been voted on. So Suarez included the monarchy, defying the European Union and the Spanish people, who had voted for it and according to polls were set to vote for a republic. Let me ask you, what really rules?
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Factory. Today is a very special occasion. We have a guest that many of you have requested a lot because we have many things in common, but we also disagree on quite a few. I've been tough on certain statements he's made on social media. And I want this show to be proof that two people, even if they have things in common and also have things they strongly disagree on, can have an extremely friendly conversation and a good relationship. Welcome, Enrique. How are you?
Brother, glad to be here.
Thank you for accepting the invitation, Enrique. It's a pleasure. The truth is, we've been talking for a while now, and honestly, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I usually don't listen to many podcasts because of time, but honestly, I've listened to a lot of yours. As a storyteller, as a person, your way of narrating is very entertaining. And above all, also, I agree with much of what you said, and all my audience knows that I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I dislike that word, and I think we could discuss its origin. But I have a lot in common with you regarding the Matrix, regarding the elites, regarding the lodges. I want to start this by confronting your vision and mine a little bit about what the Matrix is and who the elites are. That way we can both give the audience some context on how each of us sees things. And let's see if either of us manages to convince the other that there really is something more or there isn't anything more.
Right, brother, right? The most common thing, and it's true, is that we really think, let's put it this way, almost everything is done for money. But behind that, there's something spiritual, and there are, let's say, energies. Those who have the most money and understand the nature and reality use it to their advantage. So, when I explain things like how the elite perform rituals, and there are rituals for many things. So, depending on the level, it will serve one purpose or another. That's why it's very complex to explain the things we talk about and how do I see the matrix. The matrix, what people usually call the matrix, I see it more as the system. It's a corrupt or socioeconomic system, and we call it the matrix, and that's it. But it's led by people who are deeply sick because they've been raised and indoctrinated by their families to be evil and without empathy. If you grew up seeing both your father and mother do terrible things in rituals, did you even see how they hurt family members, tortured them, even killed them? Well, you're ensuring that future generations, the kids watching now, will have little empathy and will be able to run the world's largest companies. without having any kind of remorse when taking risks with the banks or at the political level with deception or with mass lockdowns. So that's why I tell you that for me, the matrix is, I would say, the compendium of all the areas that make up the corrupt socioeconomic system, and how it is led by people from the genetic lineage of royal families, specifically, who are the richest and most powerful in the world and are behind all the most important lodges across the entire earth.
I have nothing to argue about that because I think exactly the same. Enrique de Loco, that is. I also consider the matrix, to sum it up in one word, a system. It's the system in which we currently live. I don't think it's the system we've always lived in. And that's where it comes in. It clashes with what many people who have such a metaphysical, even such a, you say reptilians and others are above these lodges and families. It comes into conflict with me. I'm not saying you specifically, and I won't mention anyone not on the podcast, but I still feel that way. It's said that the world hasn't always been a matrix. Look, there have always been powers, there has always been hierarchy, and there will always continue to be powers, and there will always continue to be hierarchies. But if we look back at history a little, we see how starting in the 18th century, these families began to seize absolutely all the power and started to concentrate all the debt in themselves through banking by financing wars on both sides. That's when I say, gentlemen, we must also analyze this from a socio-political and socio-economic viewpoint. If we don't, we'll lose many people who know something isn't working. Very intangible topics, like portals, fourth dimensions, and so on. I don't know if you understand me. Yes.
Yes, perfect. I also love that you say it, brother. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I say it publicly for the whole audience, that you really apologized to me on the podcasts. And that's it. Because I felt it from the heart, and the people who saw you really see that it's sincere. And even though we have different points of view on some things, it's normal, man, for each of us to defend our own, you know? We need to recognize we're good people, each working to awaken souls in our own ways. The story you were talking about, and as you reasoned well, and you said that these are things that are not very tangible, and that's true. When I started the channel, I did it with that intention, to go one step further. I didn't want it to be ordinary because discovering the reptiles of the fourth dimension greatly impacted me. It's something personal I experienced deeply, so it was the most important and impactful thing for me. And since I know those are the highest level rituals, that's why I emphasize that so much. Because I know not many people will have the courage to talk about it, so I take it upon myself. You say that some of those who run the world, who we say are reptilians, that's not exactly the case. I know that's not true, and I'll explain it to others. Many people say that, so it's in the collective imagination, but that's not the case. I explain it so people truly understand. We live in a frequency multiverse. We have frequency. It's something you can check for yourself, simply because when you get an X-ray, your bone can be seen. That means the X-ray machine is able to decode something that you, with your limited 5 senses, are not capable of. I can see your skin, I can see your hair, but I can't see your bones. Simply because I don't have the decoder. But you are many things. If they look at you with a gamma ray machine, they'll see your organs in colors. Do you understand? Depending on the decoder, they'll see one part of you. But you are all of them at once. You're not just the bone, you're not just the flesh. You can be detected with infrared, with heat. So we are many things. What matters is the decoder. Alright, this is where the reptilian thing comes in, so people can understand. I explain it simply like this. If you have a radio and you tune in to COP, you don't hear laser. So the reptiles live on a different frequency, they're from another dimension, so they vibrate differently. We can't decode them. And that's where the royal families come in. And that's why their genetic lineage is so important, because that genetic lineage is compatible with the soul of the fourth dimensional reptiles. Our DNA serves as an antenna for souls, enabling us to incarnate and experience human life. But the members of the royal families who have pure genetic lineage, that's why there's so much inbreeding in the royal family, because they try to keep that lineage pure. It's not stupid, because people say, didn't they realize they were getting deformed and that inbreeding is bad? Of course, they realized it. The problem is that they need to keep that DNA as pure as possible. Because if not, they can't channel the reptiles from the fourth dimension during the rituals held in the ritual centers. It requires a certain step so that the reptile from the fourth dimension can be channeled by the member of the royal family. During a short period of time, during the ritual to eat humans, that's the only time they can stay here, in the third dimension, that short period of time. And we're talking about no more than 20 minutes, I'm telling you, because it's too much energy drain. So just a second and I'll finish. So they're not reptilians? Queen Isabel II wasn't a reptilian. She's human like us, not a reptile. And what happens is that now they know how to perform rituals, exactly, making some sounds with their mouths, which I don't know how they do, but they chant specific songs. They also have in the ritual centers some vaults that create a specific reverberation, which helps to tune in and facilitate. The connection of the reptiles from the fourth dimension must occur during one of the moon's 4 phases, especially the full moon. That's when the journey is made easier. So the queen was never a reptile, nor will she ever be a reptile. If you kill her, she's human, a lot of people said. If you kill her, she'll bleed. Of course, because she's human. She briefly channels the reptile from the fourth dimension. So, when people see us as frequency and vibration, do they realize it's not like the 80s series V where they removed a mask and were reptiles? That's the cheap story, let's say.
Let's put it that way. I understand perfectly. Before I start asking you questions, because I want you to tell me a little bit about how you got into this whole reptile thing, I'll ask you the question, since my view is that what you're saying could be true. We're starting from a different perspective. Mine is that of a Catholic, but not a dogmatic Catholic. That of a person who was born into a Catholic family. He completely distanced himself, and life has brought him back. Life has brought him back to Christ. And he also understands that if there is any religious doctrine that makes more sense, for me it's the Catholic doctrine. I see all these things and don't say, that sounds like a lie. I just say, I'm going to fit all this discourse to the reality that I consider to be real.
And also, in part of what you say, you're absolutely right, and I say this to the audience, it's very smart of you to do that. When you defended your position, were you against it? That I talked about reptiles and less tangible things, which is true, these are less tangible things, and that I would never see a reptile in my life. I have a lot of circumstantial evidence and witnesses, both on my channel and in negative priming in movies. I know it's true. So I defend it tooth and nail. One question.
I also tell people that there are truths that you feel deep inside, that you just know in your being with a capital B. That is, the transcendent self knows how to appreciate, even if it has no proof of it. How did you come across it, and how did your being, your transcendent self, speak? The reptiles you mentioned earlier are revealed to you. Was that where it affected you? I want to hear that story to understand your perspective and why you believe in this so strongly.
Because they're called synchronicities, and I experienced such synchronicities that now I'll explain to you what made me see. I said, okay, I'm right. Are synchronicities those moments in life when, without you expecting it, things happen to you that confirm you're on the right path? When I began learning about reptiles, I saw the first victims. They said that only during top royal rituals could you see Queen Elizabeth II, for example, transform into a reptile. They explained it as best they could, since they don't know anything about the frequency multiverse I mentioned. They were people who grew up in very wealthy families and ended up in those rituals, and in the end, they look at that and tell what they remember. Through hypnosis regressions, because they were traumatized and hurt, they were mentally controlled. I don't know if you basically know what mind control through trauma is, but it's simple. Mind control through trauma. They realized humans have an automatic mechanism, which is that if you are hurt a lot as a child and you have a very traumatic event, you encapsulate it in your brain. And then you can go on with your life. It's a protection system so you can keep living your life and not remember the terrible thing your father did to you when you were 4 or 5 years old. So they realized, the Illuminati lodges realized that they could use this to their advantage. And they said, okay, if the human body can naturally encapsulate certain memories in the brain, if I traumatize it on purpose, I can encapsulate in those parts of the brain whatever interests me. A personality that kills a certain person, or that behaves in a certain way in front of someone, or that spies on a certain person and then tells about it. Excuse me? That's what happens. They realize this and that. They're called alters, compartmentalizations in the brain, isolated from each other, caused by a very severe traumatic event. They push needles under your nails, shock your genitals, and cut off fingers. Especially because they usually want the victim to seem as normal as possible after the trauma. Cutting off fingers is reserved for extreme cases, otherwise they electrocute the person, drowning them in water using the various drowning techniques and so on. As I mentioned, using needles under fingernails and similar things. Traumatic events create alters, which are isolated brain compartments kept separate from each other. What they achieve is that the controller who did this to you can implant whatever they want in that part of your brain. They can make you a killer or anything they choose. And when you hear a certain kind of music or a certain word, you get the urge to kill the person you were ordered to. No, the elite realized that this worked, and that's why they do it with those involved in the rituals. So I watched a lot of videos of those people who had done all these evil acts to be part of the rituals, and they suffered a lot of trauma. When I discovered all this truth, and I needed something to confirm it for me because it's really too crazy. Like anyone who hears it would think, you ask like, how could people do that? How could humans eat or sacrifice each other? Why would they? What's the purpose? It makes sense once you dig deeper into it, but until you understand it, you just don't get it. So, the purpose of the highest level rituals is to channel the fourth dimensional reptiles so they can eat humans. What do the reptiles give in return? Knowledge teaches the nature of reality, tells the lodges what they can or cannot do, and more. Alright, one trick they taught them was the rituals of human sacrifice. They can lower the population's vibrational level, making people more submissive and obedient. That's the deal. For example, making everyone consume fluoride so they become more submissive and easier to control. So on an energetic level, by sacrificing the child or victim during these rituals, even without consuming blood, they drastically lower the vibrational frequency. Since they perform the ritual over the ley lines in their ritual centers, the ley lines are the Earth's energy lines. They're like rivers that go all over the Earth and spread all the vibration, the energy of the Earth. So if you lower the vibration so much on one of those ley lines, you cause suffering to humans and those witnessing the atrocity. Sometimes they're even children, so that they become even more afraid of what they're doing to the person who has been killed. The vibrational field drops enough to spread through the ley lines. It affects all beings in the third dimension, making us more docile and fearful. We're more afraid to speak our minds, to challenge government laws, and to defy anything in general, leading us to obey more easily. We need to vote, let's do it, and stay as pro-system as possible. So, they were taught all those tricks, and me, what was my awakening? That, just like you said when I first heard it, they seemed crazy to me. I began to understand when I found children, even from other countries, with stories like the adults. I have Spanish, English, and American kids on my channel. They also remove French girls saying the same thing, and kids from the Netherlands too. So when I saw all these testimonies, I said, okay, this can't be a lie, and I started to investigate. That's when I became more interested in decoding art before analyzing movies and series. Before I learned about negative priming, there's a lot that's hidden, exactly. And that's how I started confirming the logo of my channel. It's like a snake coiling upward around a sphere, as if it were the Earth, though now flat earther, of course. It's very symbolic, since Earth energy is actually toroidal. Even though we live on a flat Earth, the celestial vault forms the upper hemisphere, and the Earth, with its hollows, cavities, and caves, forms the lower hemisphere. It's a sphere, not flat like Earth appears or the United Nations logo. The energy is toroidal and spherical. When I saw that interpretation, my awakening happened. That's what you were asking me about, brother, these synchronicities. I went to visit the Karles Museum here in Madrid because my sister lives here in Madrid. She invited me to her house and mentioned a beautiful museum. There are old paintings that you like and many figures from ancient Egypt. Because the royal family lived there, relatives of the Bourbons had lived there. And it was the first house in Spain to have electric lighting. Brother, when you look at it, can you see what it was like back then? The marble finishes. You can't even fit a sheet of paper between the joints. It's real art. A house built with a quality that makes you say, what true craftsman? And, well, you looked at the clocks and how they worked and everything. It's incredible. They live like us, almost the same as now, except without the internet. At that time, it was incredible how many years of advantage they had over most people. Interestingly, the rich used to exchange gifts among themselves, often conquering lands and presenting many gifts to royal families. Well, figures from ancient Egypt, also samurai outfits, all from different cultures. You'd walk through the Serralbo Museum and see everything. Then I started to see Illuminati symbolism from the Freemasons, from the different lodges around the world and so on. And they were in the paintings. And I was really impressed to see what I was learning in the paintings. And I said to myself, so, do artists have knowledge of the occult? I started to ask myself. After walking through nearly the entire house, the Cerralbo Museum of the Marquis of Cerralbo, well, I came to the figure that I use for the channel's logo, and that's why I have it as a picture. For me, that was the moment when I confirmed the thing about the reptiles. When I saw the sphere with the snake on top, like a reptile, you know? And so many references to reptiles in different cultures. Out of everything that was at home, I started to wonder, brother, do they know something? Do the ancients know something that we didn't know? Because of that, I began investigating further, and by chance, I'll explain how it progressed. I already knew these things, loved art, and was beginning to analyze it. And I was analyzing more things about the Illuminati, and I started by subtitling videos from others who knew a lot. That's how I started. I began to realize that I loved The Simpsons, there was a lot of hidden symbolism, and they told you a bunch of truths that happened before they actually happened. What they call predictive programming, which has to do with negative priming. Predictive programming is when they tell you something before it happens, they predict something for you. Negative priming is the psychological effect caused by predictive programming. It's the specific cognitive process. That's why negative priming is telling you the truth among dramatic or comedic arguments. This creates a sense of rejecting real information in your implicit memory when someone explains it. There are two types of memory. Explicit memory is when you clearly remember events, like your wedding day. And then there's implicit memory, which is an emotional memory, and you can't remember the events that created it. This has been studied. This is psychology. I learned it in my psychology degree, and then I realized they were applying it on television. That's why I became known, because I realized that this effect, this cognitive process, was being exploited on television. I said, of course, when we all watched them bring down the Twin Towers and so on. In the United States, we all saw that farce just so they could steal the country's oil and more. Everything we already know. And like that, we saw in so many movies, even in The Simpsons, that the Twin Towers were already shown burning and everything. You could already see that they were going to go through that so many years before. That's when I started to investigate much more. And I realized that negative priming was confirmed not only in The Simpsons, but also in movies and music videos. It opened up a whole new world for me. And then, from that point on, that's when I told myself, I will confirm everything I believe from now on according to the negative priming that I find. In fact, I'm a flat earther. Not because of the excellent explanations from Miru that you brought, and not even me. That helped me get started, but for me to confirm it after I spent, I don't know, maybe 7 hours watching videos. I'm telling you this because it bothers you so much. You know you need more information, right? After that, I got to the point where I said, okay, Enrique, I don't need to watch anymore. The evidence is there. Water doesn't curve. Water can't stick to a sphere, no matter how much we want it to. There's no proof that pouring water on a sphere won't just make it run off. It's absurd, right? The idea is absurd, especially if it's spinning and the water stays on. Ridiculous. So I said, okay, they just shattered everything I knew. If this is real, there must be negative priming, and when I checked, I found it everywhere. Even Raul Duran, whom you brought, explained to me the power of the 22 Hebrew letters. And the explanation that before we incarnate, we prepare those 22 possibilities of destiny. That is, we have both destiny and free will. Once we incarnate, it depends on your actions and decisions. You will go through one of those 22 timelines that you had previously prepared before incarnating with your soul companions. When I was talking about this with Raul Duran in a live stream and he explained this to me, I said, okay, I'm going to look for it in the movies. In nearly every movie, I'm telling you, at minute 22, bam! That's when the character decides what they're going to do or not do, or at 1 hour and 22 minutes, that's when there's going to be a twist, you know? With their actions, they're going to choose one of the 2 lines of destiny, one of the 22 lines of destiny, excuse me. So there's a lot of negative priming about that. Minority Report is great because the number 22 appears throughout the movie, not just at minute 22. And of course, if you don't know this language, you can't confirm absolutely anything we're saying, so I confirm everything like this. And well, what you were asking me, that's my reasoning for why I kept moving in that direction. Now, brother, what is it that you say and defend, and I'm with you? What is it? Why do I talk about these things that apparently are crap? Because whether reptiles exist or not, it's not going to feed you or stop you from eating. Is that right, Kala, the sacrifices? It won't take your job or help with your wife tomorrow. I agree, it won't solve anything for you. Not that one.
That's my view on this. Look, Enrique, let me explain something to you. Explain it to me, because
When you told me, I had understood you. Sorry, for a second I had understood you. It wasn't as important as discussing the medication when they locked us up, you know? So tell me your memory. The clip is very good.
of Discord. What I'm saying is the following. Look, this is a controversial topic ahead, but we need to discuss it, brother.
That's why I told you I'm going to try.
To speak in code. Okay, did you mention 12 royal families, or was it a different number? But have you talked about the royal families? Yes, it said that.
About 12 or 13 started that way, but since they always change their last names, I avoid using numbers. There are 12 frequency dimensions that I can confirm, each with names and last names.
Yes, one is the
Shield,
Red Shield of Bavaria, of course, the Roths.
not them.
I won't mention them since this channel already has a strike and I don't want to risk it. There are the Rockers, there are the DuPonts, there are the families that have been gathering the monopoly in the biggest industries in the world. I mean, the energy industry, the entertainment industry, the financial industry, the arms industry, all the major industries driving the world. And what about the conspiracy theory view? I don't like to call it conspiracy theory. I prefer to call it pattern observation. So, is the world a corporatist dictatorship? I'm not denying that there are rituals. Actually, there's plenty of empirical evidence supporting it, as you say. There are witnesses, there are even rooms that have been discovered. We can talk about what happened at a place of worship of a certain religion in New York. Not long ago, they went in and took out mattresses, baby strollers full of blood. This happens all the time. If you want to get involved, if you want to find out, you can see it. Me, what I don't do is, I think my criticism was aimed at, before pointing at what you call reptiles and I call demons, I agree. I mean, I'm not that far off. I think, and all these families serve a god, and it's the god of evil. Of course, that's where
They are.
Satanists. Yes, all of them, exactly.
And I
I call what you consider reptiles Val. Oh yes, that's fine. Why?
already speaking.
About conspiracy or pattern observation, did you see the advertisement that Balenciaga made? Are you aware? I analyzed it. Why
Did they put a
tape around the documents of farting cases, a sexual attraction to minors? So they don't understand me. And the tape, instead of saying Balenciaga with one A, had two A's. I mean, I don't think it's so much a reptilian thing. I think it's more of a demonic thing also. It's just that everything...
that opens up a really big field. It's like when people have problems at home with ghosts and stuff like that. Often they are souls of people who died and remained there, you know? They died suddenly and couldn't move on to their next life. So they're stuck here in the third dimension. But there are also demonic entities, you know. Now directly, they're no longer like disembodied humans. They're entities from other dimensions, and they're evil. That's what they feed on. It's either about hate or about lust, and here they really indulge in lust. That's the thing.
It's the most complex topic, which is why I focus on it most. Because I believe that a soul can't transcend if it's thinking about lust 24/7, the point, Enrique. My criticism was mainly about the existence of such tangible things. You sit down with me with them. The willingness to observe and see. And it's very complicated that you're not able to see it. The topic of negative priming is something that personally blew my mind. I saw the thing about the 33rd second in the Qatar World Cup, and I've seen a lot of things. What have you been? I'm restless and curious, and I thought, wow, this guy says mind-blowing things. The criticism, and now it's constructive. In fact, why don't we point at those who run the financial system? Why don't we point at those who run the arms industry? Why don't we point them out? Why these families that have names, that have surnames, that are human, that have historical records, that have books, that have a chronology? It's just that I don't want to say the rabbinic word, almost yes. It's just that there are... To be careful with this. That's right. Why? Focus on awakening society to the real enemy. When we talk about that up there, I understand that's for a very high level of consciousness, and I believe your community has it. But to awaken the masses, you have to do a bit of work. First, gentlemen, you have to convince them that rituals are not nonsense. No, that's not it. That's already a lot, because
That's already very advanced. First, they would have to
convince people. Enrique, see, the government doesn't want to help you, right? For example,
It's just that we start
around there. Because I love a meme that says the following. I mean, not being a conspiracy theorist, like not believing any conspiracy theory. It implies that you think the government tells you the truth about absolutely everything, or what? Exactly. I mean, what's more likely? That the government lies to you for hidden interests, or that they're like little charity nuns and you believe everything they say. That's why I'm telling you they've made significant progress. Your work and that of others has been crucial in all this. But at the end of the day, everything you describe, I think in the end you can also see it in the Bible. Yes, if you know how to
read. That's how it is. That's right. 100%. So don't you think
that we should join forces to make an impact on the masses? Yes, and I'm going to...
I'm glad you said it that way. That's why I wanted this podcast to be different. We're setting an example. And this is what I want to convey to the audience. That you and I, even though we have so many things in common and so many things we might not agree on, can still get along. Understand each other because they want to lock down the population again. We will be in
the same boat and recommend the medication.
To be in the same boat. I'm going to need your audience and you're going to need mine. You understand? Right? So when you said that and gave that awesome explanation, and on top of that, you also brought up, why not discuss something more concrete, like what happened in 2020 when we were in lockdown and received their recommendations? That's what I said.
More or less, right? Yeah, exactly. It's just that it was...
What you said, I thought, brother, no one opposed the medication more. I did it, and you can see the comments and videos, so many people wouldn't be medicated. I was in the newspaper then, criticized as a conspiracy theorist and far right.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Right? Yeah, and...
Me.
I don't mention that, just to show. It's a target they're marketing to people. Just like when they said, but Enrique, why work with him? He's a misogynist, he's this and that, you know? They told me dumb things about you just like they'd say I'm crazy to you, you know? Yeah, with you and...
Many have said I shouldn't collaborate with you and Niru for various reasons. That's what I'm telling you. I have very conservative people following me. Maybe people who are very right-wing, maybe very traditionalist people, which isn't the same thing, even though people think it is. And what I say is this. First of all, I'm a seeker of the truth. I have to sit down with anyone who is respectful and truly believes that what they stand for is real. If I disagree, we'll confront each other. Not having these conversations isn't acceptable. We're not television. So, Enrique, I'd like to discuss why they're called reptiles instead of demons. What's the difference about? Between, what's it called, Molenbeek? Moloch, it's just that.
There is
more to Moloch, also to Molenbeek. That Belgian neighborhood's a mess. Sorry, I meant Moloch. Val, biblical figures. Oh, what the hell, you can see records of worship toward them, even in the music videos, including the one you like so much. Satanic anti-Christian symbolism, specifically. Yes, anti-Christian. In all the music videos, you can see Da Baby being crucified. You can see Lil Nas twerking for the devil. You can see it. I mean, all of this. I don't really see this as a reptilian thing. Honestly, what I see is that we're ruled by Satanists. Is that so? And in...
Mostly, the fourth dimensional reptiles are channeled by members of royal families, which are very few in the world. This is the most privileged information, and reptile rituals are the most complex to perform. Alright, you ask me, are reptiles the same as demons? No, they're not the same.
No, sometimes
they get mixed up in the stories they tell us, but it's not the same. They worship entities like Moloch and Baal, so these are very dark entities, kind of like demons from another dimension. They feed on our very negative actions. And in exchange, they grant you things like a lot of money, etc., etc. They help you on the esoteric plane, the richest ones. And this? Anyone who really studies billionaires will know that they all have their astrologers. You know? They're not idiots. Not billionaires, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, not billionaires.
That's just how it is. Why? Because they know that astrology, I don't know who...
John Pierpont Morgan once said, millionaires ignore numerology and astrology. Billionaires pay attention to them. Exactly, man. And John Pierpont...
Morgan, did you see how smart he was? He stopped Tesla from creating free energy because he had the copper monopoly at the time. And of course, how was he going to sell copper if electricity was transmitted through the air? So, that's the story, brother. There really are many different beings in other dimensions, and sometimes we confuse them when we tell stories about them. When I mention reptiles from the fourth dimension, I mean something specific. What some members of the royal families do to receive specific information. But then there's Moloch Baal. All these entities that are very evil and live in another dimension feed on all this negativity and evil acts, and in return they help you prosper in life. And this is already known now, and they do it on a small scale. Witches and warlocks and stuff like that, you know? Love spells and all that stuff, you know? Or do you want money? You have to do these crazy things, like making small sacrifices that help you, you know? They rightly call them energy contracts with entities from another dimension. So, even if you think all of that is pure gold, you can actually see it in Eminem's lyrics. And so he sings it as if the devil were talking to him, you know? And how he tries to mess with his head. And how, when you go down an evil path, you're not happy later on in certain things, you know? Because you start hearing voices, you start having thoughts that aren't yours, you start behaving in ways that aren't ethical, you know? And all of that is the drift and the price you have to pay for making, let's say, pacts with demonic entities. It's basically the same thing we do with God or with the source. For those who believe in Jesus or who believe in God, really, when you pray and you ask Him to help you, you know? Are you trying to make like a contract with Him, an energetic contract? A. Please, I behave well. I follow all your teachings, and that way you help me a little so I can prosper in life. That's the intention. Whether it happens depends on each incarnation and what the soul needs to learn spiritually. But is that really what they do with Satanism? It's like the opposite, and they always turn everything upside down. The Satanists, that's why they turn the cross upside down. That's why, you know, they invert the triangle and everything else. Because it's really about turning everything upside down and hurting Catholics, making it look like what they believe is bad. For them, every time they make a Catholic feel bad, they show Jesus doing some homosexual nonsense like they've done in some things, you know, or stuff like that. For them, they laugh because they say we're hitting them where it hurts, you know? The one who is supposed to make them good, well, we make them angry by saying he's bad, you know? So that's why it's something very complex. And I'm really telling you this honestly. I know. And you emphasize that, like the last time when you said, why didn't I talk about what happened in 2020, which is something more tangible? So I explained why not. I think I'm different, you know? There are already a lot of channels that talk about politics, channels like yours that are focused on waking people up about gender issues and so on, social issues and so on.
Exactly. So
I don't get too involved in those topics. I focus more on my own. That's why I go deeper also because I like it. I'll be honest with you. There's something else I need to say, and I mention it whenever I remember. It's just that I empathize a lot, you know? I'm a person with a big heart, and I really empathize with others. Other people's situations interest me because I studied psychology and enjoy it. My father also raised me well. I'm so loving because my mother, father, and everyone else always gave me so much love. So I'm not someone who has a psychological issue where I can't tell you I love you because of something like that, you know? If we've been through things, you respected me, I see your good heart, you act differently, I love you, brother, just don't cross me, you know? And I tell you this straight up. And a lot of people get annoyed and say, damn, Enrique, you say I love you to everyone. No, brother, if someone did something for me, even just showed me the way, they already helped me, you know? And they didn't have to say anything or could have told me to leave, but instead they helped. So I try to be loving with those who are good to me and show that. Because I know that when you're good to someone, usually they tend to be good to you too. And everyone, no matter what we say. And when we get angry, I'm the first one to get angry, and I sometimes struggle with myself not to get angry. And I get angry with the people I care about a lot sometimes, you know? Not very often, but when I get angry, I get really angry. You feel betrayed, like I care about you so much and show it, especially with my partner, you know? How do you not understand me? How do you not make that effort to understand me in this? You know, I didn't do it to hurt you, that's just how I am. Or I forgot, or any mistake I made, you know? So what I say, I take care of this because I like it. And then you said, why don't you go for more tangible things? That way I would convince more people, I would wake up more people. So you're absolutely right about that. If I focused on more concrete topics, I'd be more convincing. But you already do that.
I don't want you to feel like you don't do it, since I watched your video on Killuminati and Tupac, right? And I loved it. I was like, damn, man, and there's a lot of truth to it. That guy started discussing things he shouldn't have, so they removed him. I mean, me personally, I'll admit to you that in certain aspects of this whole web of the elite of this matrix, you've helped me wake up And I, as someone who would have always been a loyal follower of your content, felt that I was getting a little lost in certain things, which I think can be justified solely and exclusively by saying, because this movie says so, this second says so. That's when I said it was a critique. I'm passionate and intense, a fighter. That's right.
You can tell. And when I
maybe express an opinion, I express it in a very direct way, and that's why maybe you felt that, damn, hey, this guy is attacking me. It wasn't an attack. I've watched your content. It's just that I see that. Why don't we call the Red Shield by its name? All of us. That they take us down? What? Why don't we start talking about the bankers? Why don't we start talking about the monetary industry? Why don't we start talking about the Federal Reserve? And why don't we start talking, I'm going to
reason with you, because I really, and I do understand it, but it has its reasoning. Let's see, come on, well, I did it, and I had to go through all that transformation. That has its reasoning. And the truth is that I myself, when the 2020 lockdown happened, I was about to lose the channel. I had been on the channel for 8 years without getting paid, working without getting paid. That's why, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart, that Jesus Calleja came out to apologize to me and said that I don't do this for money, you know? And Schrodinger's cat also apologized to me publicly, knowing that I turned down going to the most famous podcast, which is Jordi Wild's, because I didn't want to appear again with Karles after everything we had discovered about Karles and all that. One question before.
Can you update me on what's been discovered about Karles? I'm out of the loop on those things.
I'm not going to get involved in that. Whoever wants to look into it, will look into it. But did we find that some things he said weren't true? Some things. I'm telling you some things. Look, the bastard
has taken every shot that Nico is already passing. I mean, the truth is, he's another agent. I think he was an agent of everything in the Matrix to confuse as well. That's where we are. Then I started to
see things, you know? Like he was hanging out with people close to the Templars and stuff like that, with lodges and all that. And of course, I already told him about that. Karles, I won't go near those people. I think they're shady, and I speak out against them, you know? So you're really into cryptocurrency. Paid subscriptions, stuff like that. Courses, as they say. Also, workshops and in-person events. I don't do any of that. With all respect to those who do it for a living, I don't. I never charged. I had my own job. Until last year, I was a mailman. For 15 years, I worked in construction, delivered mail, and was a soccer referee. Do you do it for passion? Let's say...
Exactly. I was there for 8
years doing it because I enjoy it, and Awakening Souls made me proud. When they sent me a message and made me feel really good saying, Enrique, now I don't think the same way anymore, man. It's not that they think like me, it's simply that I have the ability to make you think differently. Exactly, to make you think differently. That's why I avoid arguments and why I said I didn't want to come here to argue, like with the Red Pill podcast. And I tell everyone, and they know it, because I've already said it. I don't like it because it makes me uncomfortable. I prefer not to impose my views and like how things are between us. We're discussing things so we can make our points and understand each other, even if we disagree. But each of us, we share so much more
than you imagine. Enrique, of course, and
I agree. And the more we talk, the more we see it. Mainly, I ask, why not? No, I really don't. Avoid getting too involved with those topics, fearing it might lead to losing the
canon. Exactly, but because
they nearly took it from me several times. In 2020, I had 2 strikes due to medication. And I had to do the work myself. And I mean the mental process I had to go through because it was really hard for me. I had a video format, right? Short videos where I went all out with negative priming, movie clips, and more, but they demonetized everything. I didn't monetize for 8 years. Then in 2020, I got 2 strikes, then a third. They banned me, and I had a minor identity crisis. Not a breakdown or depression. But I, who loved the channel, just stayed in my room. How many subscribers did you have when...
This happened when? In 2020?
I don't know if you had 100,000, 130,000
or
140,000 subscribers, big channel? Yes, no.
It was...
Not crazy, but it's big. Big for us and what we do. Did you get YouTube plaques?
Yes,
They used to say to me, oh no, none, damn, and in...
They're not giving it to me on either channel. If they did, I'd have 2 channels over 100,000, but they won't. But anyway, I won't interrupt you. It was just so you know. No, but...
Thank you.
I'm also an enemy of the system. No way. They don't even give me my damn badge. I swear they don't. I wanted my badge. Man, no. Yes, man. With pride.
And me too. Even though I never showed it or anything. I didn't make a video showing it or anything. But I have it there with pride. Does it take guts to reach those numbers talking about what I do? So, what's up? I was afraid for my channel. I loved it a lot. And even though I didn't make any money from it or anything, I put a lot of energy into those videos. Dude, I started editing with a video that only cost me $30. With the shipping from Germany, it took an hour and a half just to render the crappy subtitles I put in the videos. Seriously, man, what I was doing was really a calling for me. So I got to the point in 2020, and I myself watching eBay, watching Oron, and seeing how they did streaming and everything, I realized I had to change or they'd kick me off the platform. I can't keep saying the word I'm not supposed to say. I have to change my words and stuff like that. I told myself I learned from Ibai and Oron, and I truly thank them from the bottom of my heart. I told everyone not to speak badly about others since we learn a lot from them, even if they just focus on their own entertainment format and don't discuss these things. I love the fact that they really teach us to be authentic in front of the camera, and being in front of the camera is the best thing there is. Honestly, the dog would crap and she didn't care. She'd just clean it up and continue the live stream. So I asked myself, hey, do I need to change? And I started doing live streams and changing all the keywords. So, when I did this, that's when they allowed me to stay on YouTube without any problems. And I was able to start monetizing the channel around mid-2020. So that's why I'm telling you, brother, that for me it was really a transition, and that whole transition is what led me to where I am now. I don't talk much about more mundane topics, nor do I mention specific names because I know they'll kick me off the platform. But I'm always talking about the wealthiest people in those families. I know you said not to mention certain last names, and while I do mention a few, it's not in every video. You just can't avoid it sometimes.
Of course, that's why, but
From time to time, I drop them. But I don't do all that, and why is that? Because you too, think about it. I'm discussing royal family members involved in human sacrifices. What should I do? Even though I can't name them, since that's punishable, you know? So in the meantime, I'll show you a picture of one and a picture of another while I don't mention their names. I get it now, you're
playing the... It's just that, unfortunately, there's no freedom of... Is that right, brother? So...
That's why I'm telling you. Plus, there are other things What I really focus on, and I'm telling you this from the heart, is that we try to come together. Because, as I told you, if they lock us down again, or if they want to convince people to take medication, or any crazy thing that happens like a fake alien invasion to create a world government, whatever they come up with next, we need help from all channels. So I try to get along. The same thing happened. That's why I sincerely thank Schrodinger's cat for apologizing and saying she wasn't motivated by money. I turned down going on Jordi Wild's show because it wasn't for me. Jordi wanted to do the show with Mr. Tartaria. He thought it was funny. He wanted to go talk about the lion thing. I told him, no problem. If you want, I'll bring a PowerPoint and show you all our empirical evidence. But I had to...
Iru had to go too, right? I said, I'll take...
Any colleague. Whoever you want. I'll take Iru or anyone else I mentioned, so he could choose. But he said, no, Enrique, what I want... And I get it, since it was the meme. He wanted the Mr. Tartaria meme. You saw it there. Do you understand how they got burnt? How he was cracking up when I asked him, you know? So that one about love is...
brutal. Clearly he watched Interstellar the day before. The story.
About that, man, is that Jordi really told me everything, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Jordi. Guayla A treated me amazingly, was going to pay for all my expenses, and everything was awesome. A really great guy, you know? But he wanted something more. The meme, like Setiarmi invited me to the awards and gave me the award this year with Mr. Tartaria. And I told him, no, man, I'm not going up there with him after what happened, you know? I'm a good person, but I had conflicts with this person because I feel they aren't always honest with me. I'm not working with him anymore. I told him privately, and now I'm telling you. If you want, I can introduce you to others, let you choose who I bring, and show you evidence. You'll see it on your screen. What we say isn't made up, it's actually there. And he told me no. Understandable, because what people really wanted and what they were asking for was empirical Mickey Mouse and Mr. Tartaria. That's just how it is. They wanted the meme, and I get it, since the format made him take it elsewhere. He's not even one of us, you know? But it's nice to see in the end, you know? That my career, the good thing about it, I sold. I don't just take and... All my content is free. I don't have a paid subscription. I don't sell a cure. But it's something between you
and me. There's nothing wrong with having a subscription of...
payment, okay? By...
that. There's nothing...
wrong with that. If you dedicate a live stream...
interacting with your top followers and providing content is fine. The issue arises when you charge people without offering anything. The courses and all that. I mean, that's where my capitalist side comes out. Like, come on, man. If we're putting absolutely all our effort into waking people up. Some people would pay for a monthly subscription if you interacted with them one-on-one, but you can't do that. I want you to know I don't value every business related to social media. Not at all.
To make that clear, and I agree with Jota, I think it's perfect, but what's happening? That to me, those who taught and inspired me led me to make a living from social media today. It's about getting all the content for free. And my principles, let me explain. Just like I have it, I have the members tab because people asked me to put it there. People donate to me, they become members of my channel. People act out of unconditional love and altruism, not because I give them anything extra. But I'll explain to you why and where all this comes from, because it was the people who inspired me, that's why I'm here now. And I tell it like this on the members tab of my channel. There was a person named Aaron Schwartz who influenced us a lot. In fact, Creative Commons, the tool that's on YouTube, he helped design it when he was just 13 years old. Between the ages of 11 and 13, he was helping to develop the Creative Commons that we are using today. Now, you saw he was responsible for stopping the Protect IP Act and Stop Online Piracy Act laws, which were meant to take our data. It's complex. Aaron Schwartz did something that changed the world forever, and I'm going to explain it to you. He was already a computer genius since he was a child. So when he grew up, what happened? What did he discover? He discovered that big companies were making a lot of money by charging for doctors' articles, the scientific research that helped cure diseases. Then he realized that companies like Journal Storage stored all those articles that make scientific advances possible to cure diseases. And they charged $30, $50 per article, you know? And he realized and said, no, they can't be hoarding them. 5 companies, all these articles making money off them. And so many people dying from diseases because they can't find them, because they don't have access to that information. Later mix the articles, compare them with the inventions, and create something new. All right, Aaron Schwartz. For doing this, they wanted to give him 30 years in prison. He fell into a deep depression because, unlike Tupac, who could handle jail, he came from a good family. And did he commit suicide? I don't think the CIA or anything like that killed him. I'm telling you honestly because I look at him in the last videos. He was very thin and very worn out because he came from a very balanced and good family, you know? And they were going to put him in jail for 30 years just for wanting to change the world. What was it that he did? Since they argued so much and went to protest, they eventually agreed, right? Unable to eliminate this information, the big companies decided to make it public. But in 5 libraries in the United States, extremely far from each other to download it, that's crazy. You can't take a trip of so many miles. The United States is so big, you know? Unlike Spain, where they leave it in 5 libraries, in the United States, they're spread far apart, so they already did it. What's the point? It's better to pay than travel for hours to get a free article at the library. What did he do? He went to the libraries, downloaded everything, entire terabytes of everything, and then published them for free. Alright, where's the thing here? Aaron Schwartz commits suicide. After the suicide. It turns out it was a 14-year-old boy. Thanks to the free articles, which he later mentioned, I almost burst into tears. Man, that's why I say these things motivate me. Thanks for those articles. The 14-year-old boy managed to develop an early detection method for pancreatic cancer, which is what he died from. Bill Hicks. If he'd had this, he might still be alive. To me, he was the greatest comedian ever. And this boy developed it thanks to the free articles released by Aaron Schwartz. He says he couldn't afford it. But the 14-year-old boy, thanks to it being free and having that pure-hearted initiative, was able to help. He began researching and contacted doctors, saying he believed he could detect pancreatic cancer with this approach. A doctor listened to the 14-year-old boy and took him there to develop it. In a few months, they developed an early detection for pancreatic cancer, which now allows millions of people not to die. When before, they would always die. Dude, yeah, pancreatic cancer
Is among the toughest. That wouldn't have
been possible. And he would come out, the kid saying, I wouldn't have been able to pay the $30 for those articles if they hadn't been published for free. Aaron, today those millions of people would have been saved, and Aaron was already dead, man, you know? That's why this brings tears to my eyes. It's tough. Genuine people motivated me to do what I do. Why don't I ask for subscriptions or charge for content? Because I never know whose soul I'll awaken. You don't know what you're going to influence. What if someone born into hardship finds my content and I give them the key, you know? So that kid can change the world? That's enough payment for me, man. I've already done everything I came here to do. So, since that's where I come from, Jota is what doesn't let me charge for my content, you know? I explain it to everyone so they understand. I don't look down on people who sell courses. I feature them on my channel weekly and share links to their courses. I love that they make a living from it and that you have your own community of awakened people. But I don't do it for that reason. I also believe that life, God, the source, the frequency multiverse, and reality take care of me and let me keep doing what I do. I did it from the heart from the start and never charged. That's how I see it. Charging would ruin it. For me.
You know,
Maybe that's your
it's my way of...
life, By talking, I want to make you...
I want to ask you a question and also discuss the frequency multiverse. I don't want to forget. It's important. Have you told the story of what was the name of the person who downloaded the files? Aaron Swartz.
Okay, Aaron Swartz.
He's one of a long list of victims who have tried to go against the system, specifically the pharmaceutical system. Exactly. Do you want to talk a little more about how many victims there have been who dared to speak out and ended up badly? A lot, man. To start.
For example, with Kurt Cobain, who we all love, Kurt Cobain. I was the first to subtitle the video years ago. It was among my first, maybe the fourth. He's watching now.
Looking at the horizon, saying there's an island over there. The first one I subtitled.
It's already several years old. I think I published it in 2014 when I first had internet and I did the subtitles myself. And that's when he was talking about Epstein's Island. Back then, he was already saying it. And that's when they took him out afterwards. Kurt Cobain. I have no doubt at all that he didn't commit suicide because he had tough times. Of course, he was addicted to heroin and all that. But by then, he wasn't a junkie anymore. Still, they took him out. We have the proof about Tupac, man. Tupac, there's just no doubt about it anymore. It took them 2 tries to take out Tupac, not just 1. Because, of course, he wasn't a junkie. He was tough, He considered suicide and wrote about it, but didn't go through with it. There's even a song that says it. It's normal because he was under a lot of pressure. Let's remember that Tupac died at 25 years old, and the most interesting thing about Tupac is exactly that. He left at his peak, literally saying it through his songs and music. I'm going to take care of the Illuminati. That's why he released the Don Illuminati album with all the sellouts. With Drake, he was already exposing Puffy Combs as gay. He was already putting him on the back cover. We're talking about 1996, the Don Illuminati album. Now look at Puffy. How long did it take him to go to jail? We're in 2025. It took almost 30 years since Tupac told us lo podre. Sorry, that's rotten in Galician, lo podrido, which was Puffy and all those people. For what Tupac said to be confirmed, and one thing Tupac said is, and that's why they killed him in the end, because of the album The Donkey Illuminati, I think maybe they would have let him live at least another year or 2. The problem with Tupac is that he got involved in politics. Tupac said that year, and he left it said, and I have it in the recordings, like the one you saw, he said, this year you're going to see me in front of everyone and I'm going to create my own political party. It will be for everyone. Mexicans, Ukrainians, everyone. It's gonna be for all those poor people, the poor people who are against the system and who want things to change. And after that, that's when they killed him. We know everything about Reggie Wright Jr. Reggie Wright Jr. was the son of the Compton police lieutenant, who was Reggie Wright Sr., and Reggie Wright Jr. was the one who had the security agency that backed Tupac. And Death Row Records was the one in charge of protecting the artists. And precisely Michael Moore, who was one of their protectors, said, that night Reggie Wright told all of us that we couldn't carry weapons, and Michael Moore refused. He said, hey, I bought the gun and the license is mine. You're not going to tell me to defend Tupac unarmed. And he said, I'm going armed. Do whatever you want. And Reggie Wright said, yeah, well, today you're going to the club, 662. And he separated him from Tupac. The rest were unarmed. Because Reggie Wright had ordered him to... that his father was a police lieutenant in Compton and had ties to the Illuminati lodges since the 70s. Besides, there are even photos of him wearing the cap, like he was a mobster. And everything. Man, it was corruption. That was crazy, man. A question that I...
want to ask you, what do you think about Joanna Rivers? Joanna Rivers, do you know who...
she is?
The woman who said what? When they asked her, when are we going to have a gay president in the United States? You don't know? Do you know about it? About it already? Well, no.
I know that one, Michelle Obama? Yes, no.
You don't know. The theory that Michelle Obama is a man? Yes, but I don't...
Remember Joanna Rivers, the blonde girl who...
was a famous United States journalist. Damn, well, no.
I didn't remember, he said. They asked him.
When will there be a gay president in the United States? He says, please, we already have one right now. Obama is gay. Everyone knows he's trans. Yeah, man, but it's...
Yeah, those things, yes. And we talk about it. What's going on?
Uh,
She was dead after 3 months.
she died 3 months later from medical malpractice. Yes, she didn't last long. These things happen.
That in.
Some say it's a coincidence, maybe not. The video exists. If you search for Joanna Rivers saying Obama is a man, you'll find it.
And
If you look for
how
did he die, it didn't take long. There are many who
it's obvious. For example, Michelle Obama is very obvious. There are also videos showing the package hanging, you know? Hanging and damn, also
the president,
of France. Damn, Bridget is for sure.
man, and
Also, the kid's photo is the same. You saw him hit him recently.
Macron, right? Yes, still.
He hit him hard and still made him walk. Damn, that's another one. Are you sure? So that happens, but that's part of the Illuminati system. One question. Tell me a
Little bit about the Illuminati lodge system, and if you separate that from the families, what's the relationship between the royal families and the lodges? Which comes first? What is created? What's the origin? Of course, that's
the story. What is created first are the royal families. They were the ones who first gained this knowledge. What happens? How do they get there?
this knowledge. They come to this knowledge.
Through mediums. So they served as channels. So, you know that person who has the gift of telling you what they're told? Souls of the dead or entities from other dimensions and so on. So those witches of the time, or channelers or whatever, started to deliver messages from beings who were asking for collaboration and said they would give them a lot of information in exchange so they could advance as a civilization. So thanks to that, they were given the knowledge of how to perform a ritual to channel the reptile or, at the very least, summon a demon. Whether it's Baal or others, since there are many and they don't always appear physically, you can still hear them and they tell you things, you know? Well, that information was given to them so they could connect with them once they received that information to control the population, which was huge. Out of fear, they tortured people and used similar methods to keep the population controlled and obedient. So then they started setting up the structure of the lodges. So the members of the royal families are the first ones to set up the lodges. The Illuminati were the first to gain power, even before compound interest banking and everything that followed. We're talking before ancient Egypt and Babylon, likely in Atlantis and Sumeria. Sorry, in Sumeria, not in Atlantis, and in Lemuria. Then comes Babylon and Sumeria, and after that comes Egypt. And so on, you know? Atlantis was where the Atlantic Ocean is. That's why when you go diving, you find parts of civilizations and so on. Before the Great Flood, the water level was lower, so those civilizations were on land. That's where Atlantis was. That's why it's called the Atlantic Ocean. Because when the water rose with the flood, all those cities were left underwater and we went to live in other places and so on. But that's where Atlantis is. And it definitely existed.
Yes, of course. What proof?
Is there of that?
The cities that are...
All sunken, there are sunken cities, of course.
There are a lot
of glass with pyramids and all kinds of things under the water and at many meters deep. All those remnants of civilizations, like massive stone structures and carvings, were submerged during the flood, an event mentioned by all civilizations. Man, that's true, you know?
that had to...
Be true. I don't know what the hell it was. I don't know how the gates of heaven opened or what the heck it was. But that the sea level rose like crazy, they all agree on that. And we see it in the evidence when we see that there are sunken cities and nobody is going to build underwater because that's absurd, you know? It's impossible, I tell you.
And when you...
Stop to look at history too. You realize that if they call it the Atlantic Ocean, why is that? Really, because that's where the Atlanteans were. That's where Atlantis was. Lemuria is its counterpart near Japan. The Japanese islands are Lemuria's highest points, but Lemuria is fully submerged. Those are the two great civilizations that began where communication with beings from other dimensions started. They gave them the knowledge and began to maintain these royal families. They taught them, already with the purest lineage, about what is called endogamy, and that way, to maintain pure genetic lineages. Alright, so what happens next? That royal families, like everything else, like in the military and everywhere, need a structure of people to help them. Yeah, so they start setting up lodges. Each royal family sets up its own lodge. The Japanese royal families, the English royal families, the royal families, you understand? They all know how to channel the reptiles, the world's key royal families. And then they start making lower level lodges, and they start making lodges like the ones there are now, you know? Like one is Skull and Bones, another is the Order of Malta, another is the Knights of the Sacred. And you know the Templars? There are thousands of lodges. Some resemble military orders, others are like the Order of the Bath, and some are different, you know? But they're lodges, they're structures of lodges, of people who come together as a group to share knowledge. And they're called lodges. Illuminati, because Illuminati means enlightened. That is, you can see. Not if you're in a dark room, you can't see. But if you turn on a light, you can see. So when you're enlightened, what you can do is see. Then you understand the nature of reality. When we say Illuminati lodges, we don't mean the one on the dollar bill, which is the Bavarian Illuminati. It's like if we said Real Madrid Football Club, not all football clubs. It's the Real Madrid Football Club. But they call it a football club just to call it that, but they're all football clubs. Well, the Illuminati lodges are like that. They're the Masons. They're the Order of Malta. They're all those orders. And actually, now that you mention it, if you remember the society called Skull and Bones, which John Kerry and Bush belonged to, I don't know if you remember. Well, we have Tim Russert, the journalist who already passed away. I have to ask you, exactly?
Brother Justo, he was
watching that. And he says,
how
can you be rivals if you both belong to Skull and Bones since childhood? Neither denied it was a lie. Those videos are legendary, and they were the ones that helped me wake up at first to realize that lodges were real. When I saw Bush hesitating, saying, well, you know, and John Kerry saying, well, they're so secret that we can't talk about them. Well, there we have the lodge structure. And then, depending on the level of the lodges, you have a certain knowledge of reality. Here we had a very famous case with a politician from our country who built an airport without airplanes. We won't say more. I have witnesses who were there at that ritual he performed in which, well, a gypsy child was killed. Well, they would take a child from the street. When they take a child from the street, you already know. The ritual isn't high level since top members already have children. They're not taken from the street, as lodge members usually provide them. Your own children. Yes, if you're wondering, yes, your own children, because that's what really proves your commitment to the lodge until the end. In fact, we have a video that's important. I included it in one of my videos about Tupac. We see the former president of the United States, not the current one, during his time with Obama, who gives him an award and everything. Well, during a press conference, he starts approaching the girls and touching them, while the girls were there with their parents. It all happened on camera. Biden, yes, Biden. Well, I have the video, you can hear the audio, and I translated it many years ago, before he became president, in which he tells the 13-year-old girl in her ear that she makes him very hot and that if she wants, he'll give her a movie. That's recorded in front of the cameras, and you see how the parents laugh while they hear this, which is captured by the cameras. That's when, if you don't know anything about the lodges, you say, damn. How does a father hear them say that to his daughter and not hit them? A slap or maybe a shot right in front of everyone. But why? Because they're from the lodge. And one of the things that shows you're going to be with the lodge until the end, it's giving up your children so higher-ranking lodge members can do whatever they want, even kill them. Sometimes they sacrifice them. That's why I say what happened with the politician in our country was minor. They took a gypsy child from Spain, brought him to a farmhouse, and arranged the children in 2 star shapes. Is this satanic symbolism like that? And they forced the children to watch as he shot and killed the gypsy child right in the center. For what? To lower the vibrational level, in both with the fear of the children watching how one of their classmates is killed and they can't do anything. That low vibrational level spreads through the ley lines, making us much more submissive. We often lack the courage you have to truly express our feelings. You'll get a lot of criticism for being outspoken, you know? And so that's the lodge system, and there are those who sacrifice humans, and even those who sacrifice humans to drink their blood, which is what we talked about with adrenochrome. And so that's a drug. Then you add a beep without fail, and it's a drug. So they don't drink it to rejuvenate. Human blood is drunk because it gives a high, just the adrenaline alone. I have a friend who really loves getting high, mostly with stimulants and stuff, especially with cocaine. And he says that when he tried adrenaline, I saw it because a friend of mine who worked at a hospital gave it to him. He injected adrenaline right into his leg. It was only 10 minutes, but I saw him like a runaway horse, and he said he had never felt like that before, man. Adrenaline hits like crazy. So if you make the victim suffer with all that fear, a lot of adrenaline is released. You drink the blood and it hits you like you just snorted 5 grams of coke or something like that, you know? It's insane. And besides that, adrenaline, when it comes into contact with air, oxidizes into adrenochrome. And then what that does is act like a psychedelic. It's like taking mushrooms with psilocybin or mescaline from cacti. It takes you to higher states of consciousness, and you can talk to entities from another dimension that are incarnated in other frequency paradigms, not here on Earth. And then that's when they started having communications with them, and they give them different lessons on how they can control us. So we have those who sacrifice humans just to lower our vibration, like that Spanish politician from here. Those ones don't drink blood or anything like that. They know the population is more submissive if they commit those evil acts and lower the vibration over the ley lines. Alright, then we have the mid to high level rituals, where yes, victims are sacrificed and their blood is drunk. It's a powerful drug that elevates your consciousness, allowing you to connect and communicate with beings from other dimensions. And then there are the highest level rituals of the Satanists, which are the ones that channel the reptiles from the fourth dimension. Humans not only drink the blood with adrenaline and adrenochrome, but also, besides, they reach a state of ecstasy of such a low vibration that they temporarily give up their body for about 10 or 20 minutes, so the reptilian can eat the human lacking their dimension. They come to feed on humans and in return share greater knowledge about how things or reality work. So, we have all those ranges of levels in which they are involved. Human sacrifices. And then there are all the lodges that, since they sacrifice animals, are those the crappiest rituals. Even the ones that are lodges, like the Lodge of Lugo, which had 3 people, which are offshoots of the lodges that give them permission. For example, the Grand Lodge of Spain grants, I don't know how many permits to small subsidiary lodges, so there are 5 here, 10 there. And they're simply like organizations of businessmen who help each other. I sell toilet paper. You have hotels, so buy from me. They're always helping each other boost the economy. But they have no damn idea about all the shady things they do. Those from the higher lodges. So it's a very broad lodge system, and it's a Y-shaped system, a pyramid system. So only those at the very top know what they want to know. Lodges always operate on a need-to-know basis. That is, they will only allow you to know what you need to know to contribute to the organization. They tell you nothing about the rest. That's important.
Enrique, because I know people who have been part of a very low-level Masonic lodge. They said that's not true and it doesn't work that way. But at the same time, I still don't quite see what the point is. I mean, they don't have all of them. Freemasonry, common objectives, not just the lodges.
Higher-ranking Illuminati share common goals, not just more lodges.
But Masonic lodges, are they the same? Not based on what
I explained before. Because when I say Illuminati lodge, I really mean a lodge that has the knowledge of the nature of reality. I'm not talking about it being called the Illuminati lodge, or them being the Bavarian Illuminati, like I said about the dollar bill. Is that an actual lodge? Of course, exactly. So the Freemasonry has many different rites. Because it's like I was telling you, as it grows and then you have children and your children's children also have to establish their own lodges, etc. I'll also explain something else to you. Why am I not so good with names? Because as I kept discovering, I realized that they're not stupid and they're so smart, really. And what about them? When they have many children, that's what all the rich people do, the billionaires from the families we talk about, and that's how they change the last name for many of them. I found this out from their own children, who in the end didn't want to contribute to the cause or belong to the lodges. So they explain this and tell you, look, I'm the child of those from the Red Cross, for example. My father is so-and-so, and I'm an illegitimate child. They keep us out because they want us to continue controlling the banking of the different states. But it can't be under his name. Otherwise, it would be known that everything belongs to the same people. Almost everything belongs to just 1% of the population, mostly from these families. But even so, they're not interested in people knowing. So many of the people we have running companies and everything with different last names, they're not really those last names, they're others. In fact, even those from the Red Cross who are called that, if you did your research well, you know that they already changed that last name, because I can say the previous one is just not very well known. The Bauer and so on, they changed their name.
they changed their name?
Brother, it's very difficult. Bauer, what was his name?
The original, I don't recall exactly.
I recall the last name, German moneylender, and
That was the detail.
that they already had so many conflicts. And people had realized that it's them who are behind it, that they have to start dividing the family. And they say, okay, the next generations can't keep knowing what's going on. It's like monarchies. People ask, Enrique, the monarchy isn't very influential now, right? And so on. I tell them, wait, brother, let's use our country as an example. It's the simplest thing. We have literal empirical evidence. For example, who gets the most benefits in our country? According to the Constitution, is it the king? Much more.
Than him.
The politician we supposedly all chose. Do you know what it should be? For ethical reasons, as they say, and all that, if we all vote for a party, then that person should have the most power, right? Well, I disagree there.
Me too, but you...
I'm just saying what they promote about democratic society. I agree with you. It shouldn't be that way. No, the majority always.
It's stupid, man, so what?
That history, how is it? It's what they sell you about democracy, about this reality of democracy. Then you check the constitution to see who has the most privileges. The only one who is inviolable is the king. The only one who is literally, as the constitution says, irresponsible is the king. Dude, are you the one responsible? Are your actions your responsibility? No, everyone.
The politicians.
Neither.
Well, neither, but for...
At least the constitution isn't written like the king. It's not just like, dude, you know? So we saw it with the case of Urdangarin when they caught him and everything. It was known that the daughter was also involved. They kept her out of jail and imprisoned Urdangarin, as he's the most distant from the family. They placed him in a renovated women's prison with his own kitchen, and he went alone to the yard. So what kind of prison is that, you know? It's a joke. But anyway, the thing is that we have the story of Suarez. Suarez, we have the leaked recording. I don't know if you remember. I think it was in 2009 when there was that whole thing. I haven't seen Suarez. Suarez is in an interview like that, and you have to give the interviewer credit. That lady is the boss. She asked some questions and said, well, this won't be recorded and such, and then said, well, I won't answer that, and so on. Suarez grabs the mic like this, so it can't be heard when he's asked, hey, did you vote on monarchy or republic when the European Union asked for it during the transition? The guy gets nervous and says, you caught me off guard today and all that. He grabs the mic, the cameraman, and moves the camera aside. But because of the way life is, and because the Lord, you know, looks after us, and in the end the truth always comes to light. He aimed the camera at Suarez again, who said, we told him in Europe that we voted for him. But since the votes and the polls we were doing showed that the monarchy was losing, we put it in the constitution and said that it had been voted for by the European community. Suarez says this, and we have it recorded with him covering the mic and the camera, knowing that this is what helps us understand that behind the cameras, people aren't idiots, those who are in the media. And he moved the camera away, man. He moved the camera away precisely because he knew, man, that it was a scam. So I'm asking you, did Suarez bring in the monarchy by going against the European Union, by going against the Spanish people? The people had voted, and they knew from the polls that we were going to vote for a republic. I'm asking you, who decides? To that question, you...
That's not Suarez's concern. No, services.
American intelligence services?
But I'm telling you, was Suarez in charge?
No. Who was the one protected by the Constitution? The king, man. Who ordered them to do it? Was it the CIA? Do you think the king does rituals?
Like these, from what I understand.
Many do. Royal family heads perform such rituals. I can't say if ours does.
I'm not so sure about that. Look at what I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, but...
Yes, he definitely belongs to that elite, but I think kings are now just figureheads. Well, I'm telling you.
It's actually the opposite. They do it, which is why I mentioned this. That the king in Spain, Enrique, doesn't matter because they need
you.
Believe that he doesn't matter at all. When it comes to the facts, I tell you, the facts are the facts, brother. And the Constitution doesn't protect you. It doesn't protect me either, and it doesn't protect Pedro Sanchez either. He's shielded by many corrupt parts of this socio-economic system, but the Constitution only protects the king. And when we see that there are problems, the ones who get away the most from going to jail or having problems are always the royal families, and they always do too. But man, not even... almost as distant from the royal family as possible. Close members avoided jail despite evidence. Unbelievable. And then the politicians, well, there's Santos.
Cerdan now too, and let's see.
Let's see. Some will fall. Things are improving. And why do you think so?
Things? Enrique, I have my...
My girlfriend is a lawyer and has served as a substitute judge in Spain. She's very knowledgeable. She won every case she took for me, brother. She's a machine at writing and proved things get better. Even though sometimes they don't rule in her favor, let me explain. Even though sometimes they don't rule in her favor. For example, in the first case, the judge is lazy, avoids involvement, or has personal ideals. You go to the Superior Court of Justice, then the Constitutional Court, if needed, you know? As you rise in rank, there comes a point when written rules prevail and they follow the law since their jobs depend on it. And I've seen her go to the Supreme Court and win, you know? So what others told you no and stuff like that? It gets to a point where, in the end, because I get myself in trouble and I'm going to lose my job, it supports me and helps me cover for those elite people bribing me, you know? I'm not risking it for this crap, you get it? I'm explaining so you really understand me, okay? We'll probably agree more than it seems. Progress is happening, but slowly. There's still a lot of corruption. Many judges cover up cases, and many judges and prosecutors make sure the cases don't go forward. But many times it's because they're trapped. How do you see it now with many of them? Did you see the Bárcenas case with the PP the same way as we now see things with the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party? Many of them aren't good people like us who want to wake others up. They're people who have 50 recordings of themselves and say, okay, if I'm going down, I'm taking this one, and this one with me. So you want to mess with me, man? You want to mess with me? Well, I'm taking all of these people with me. Exactly. And that's why it comes out. But they don't come out because they're pure and crystal clear and good and care about us. They come out because they've had enough of this crap, man. And the crap that comes out, you and I know it. It's a corner. Because the fact that Sanchez's wife has a father who runs a gay prostitution sauna is crap. Of what they do, because they run prostitution of many kinds, many, including children. That's how I say it, because we have the recordings. And remember what the one from Spanish Socialist Workers' Party said? She claimed she saw some from the Supreme Court. Specifically with 13-year-old girls, you know? So, let's not play dumb pretending this is real. Besides, I can tell you.
That the case. Check out my podcast with Melchor Morales about the Cote Cabezudo case. Is amazing. It's absolutely incredible.
And there?
You realize I thought I was going to cut.
I told you, sorry, I was honest. I thought more would be cut, but only a little was.
In fact, she accused a famous television host, and there still haven't been any complaints to the channel or to him, so it must be true. Enrique, the main point is the question itself, which is already redundant. More important than any they've ever asked you before, I think. So when do the good guys win? What has to happen for the good guys to win? For me, no.
We're not going to have one like we'd like in the movies. A final large-scale victory. Brother, you win little battles along the way. That's why I was explaining the legal stuff to you earlier. Why? I remember I had the case with Karles with my girlfriend, and we live in a world of appearances, and I'll explain with this case why. Because my girlfriend went and presented the case. She didn't have the experience that the girl had, who was the lawyer for Karles. A woman who knew things by heart from many trials, a lot of experience. And she started explaining everything to the judge. Boom, 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 you know? Reasoned, I don't know how much, she would give a 15 or 20-minute speech there. Just laying everything out, you know? My girlfriend. I don't know if she spoke for 5 minutes or so, that's it. The judge said, no, that's it. I read what was written. I left the trial and told my girlfriend, this woman ruined us. We have nothing. We're not going to win the Karles trial because of her. And she tells me, you just relax. That's all written down. What she's doing in there is just acting. She's telling you a bunch of things. Another issue is if the judge will consider them. He arrived, and the judge, there was no doubt we won the case. They appealed and went to a higher court. The letter came last week. We both won. Plus, he's being made to pay my girlfriend $750 because they wrote everything down. That they even wrote that it was a copy. Oh, dude, they did everything, you know? They didn't even bother to make a good lawsuit or anything, man. So, a lot of it is pretending that you know and that you have things. But if the judge is really good and sticks to the law is the law. And things move forward and they say, look, very good, your speech was really great. Now here these two things are being judged, and these 2 points are being compared by this law and by this law. So Enrique has 5 years of leave if he wants, and you have to reserve his position. And that's it, you understand? My girlfriend found 2 flaws, so they breached the contract. And that's it. And the law has to be applied like that, and we won. What am I trying to tell you with this? That really, what we often see on television and everything are just fireworks to entertain us, to keep us constantly divided and arguing. And that's how it is. Don't you often see people arguing about what was said on the news today? You ask, how will that affect you? Or why do people argue about things like soccer? It's great people get so into it. But when you start getting angry with your family and friends because one is a Barca fan and another is a Madrid fan, that's when you realize they're controlling you psychologically. Because what does it matter? It's like if you like blonde women and I like brunette women. So what? Are you better than me? You know what I mean? So that's why things move forward but very slowly, and we're never going to see a final victory. You say it and we all go out. Yes, this is our moment. We don't just win little battles like now. With what happened in 2020, it's never going to rain.
To everyone's liking. But for the matrix to collapse, what would need to happen? That's my question, okay? I mean, I understand that. That's the question, because I understand. So I'm going to
rephrase it.
What has to happen for the matrix to fall? Or what has to happen for this practically feudal system in which we work to enrich the pockets of others, where we can't even afford a home? Europe is being completely invaded. Is that so?
How does this movie end?
Honestly, man, and
I honestly believe that when we learn to differentiate who we truly are. Could you say it's the ones at the bottom against the ones at the top? I make a specific distinction. Those at the bottom include people considered very rich by us, such as soccer players. Of course, Pedro from Walcas, our friend, does he have money? He does. I care about him and know he's a good person. He has nothing to do with lodges or anything like that. He's extremely wealthy. Yet see, when I mention rich people, he's always at the top. That's just who he is.
leftists here think anyone with money, like a soccer player who has 300, is a problem.
Million, and must be. Look, brother, you don't know what wealth is. Wealth is those people. Those people, the ones you say are billionaires who have so much money, and I'm telling you, that's hidden. They use Forbes magazine and similar sources, but you won't find it there.
Neither Escudo Rojo nor DuPont,
Nor
John Pierpont Morgan, the real people don't go there. Let me tell you one thing.
people don't know how to appreciate it, and that's how it is. One thing is the millions you have in the bank, real estate, and so on. But there's one thing that people never count, and it's one of the most valuable things, and no economic measure accounts for it. And that's the relics. The relics and those paintings from the Ceralbo Museum, those daggers and knives used in rituals that you don't even know exist. But the kings were there, and what do they say? With this I sacrificed the firstborn son of the one I used to summon that entity. How about that? Do you understand? All of that has a value, which is something you can't even imagine. It's not like they sold a Van Gogh for millions. That's nothing. On the side of royal family relics, the handwritten texts of the kings from when they go out, from like when... It was here that they sold some, and they went for a lot of money. The ones from the man who discovered America, Columbus. And like that, you know? All those writings, and all of them that sell for a lot of money, but those are the well-known ones. But there are things that aren't known, that are at the lodge level. Like the daggers, the knives, the cups in which they collect blood with diamonds and everything. It's not just that they're valuable because they're made of gold and have diamonds. Isn't it because of everything they went through, the blood they had, and those who drank that blood? Do you understand all that wealth that's not visible to the public eye? And above all, also so that people aren't deceived. Now it's clear there are underground bases, and they admit it to you. We even see in the Madrid subway how many layers there are, how many chambers they have. They admitted it. It was even in the newspaper the other day and everything. How many people are working under the roads of Madrid to monitor all the storage facilities and so on? How much is there under the royal palaces, the castles, etc., etc.? All those underground bases that we have no damn idea what they're like, they're kilometers long, because they're underground and nobody knows. That all costs a fortune. The magnetic levitation trains, like Japan had in the 70s. I say, there's no friction, and here politicians keep selling the AVE as if it's the latest technology. The AVE is crap, man, it has friction. Just with magnetic levitation, there's no friction anymore. It takes less energy to move it. It's much safer because it hardly ever tips over or anything since it's supported on both sides. Now, there are already some magnetic levitation trains that run through tubes, tubular ones. That is, they levitate inside a tube and reach speeds of over 6,000 kilometers per hour. Because they have almost no friction, well, they don't have friction, and besides, the tubes are specifically designed to go much faster. The story is, with those giant drills we use, do you see how many kilometers they can cover in a day? Imagine, for their plans, how many machines these people must have, people who have been billionaires for generations? So, isn't it the guy from Facebook? Now that the house is being built and mountains are created, as politicians say, to provide shelter. Many years were spent working underground, which isn't reflected in real money, I understand. Remember that
The question was, when does the matrix fall? Sorry about that.
Going off on a tangent, when does the matrix fall? The matrix falls when if we agree.
I'll tell you when the matrix falls from my perspective. That's why.
That's what I was getting at. When people realize who the real enemies are, and the real enemies are so powerful that most people don't even know, as you said, not even their names. For me, it's important when people see my enemy isn't someone who votes right or left. My enemy isn't the one with 300 or 400 million. My enemy is the one who is so much of a billionaire that he doesn't even know how much money he has and couldn't spend it even if he wanted to. That's something people can't understand. But at some point, those with so much money are the ones who even print cash and everything. There's no way, let's put it that way, to account for all the wealth they have. So for me, the only way for them to fall is for people to realize who their real enemy is. And there are very few of them.
I'll let you know when they'll fall. Please enlighten me.
When does the Matrix fall?
I'm not playing the channel. I don't care. The matrix is going to fall when, above all, the West stops being a slave to the banks. When the Federal Reserve of the United States of America is audited, when the financial system stops being based on usury, when money is worthless. What four old men in a private entity tell you, and it has backing like gold, yes, when they can't
afford
speculate and play with the capital so that there is a constant inflation of about 2% every year, which exclusively benefits those who own the assets. And those are the people we're talking about. Ultimately, the system collapses, restoring the sovereignty of nations, which has been lost up to now, to the detriment of the big banks, which they are the ones who hold all the debt. Truly, the problem is a war against the financial system. There's no way, I agree, there's no way to take down the matrix if not, and people mention Vox. Well, you know that I'm a right-wing person mainly because I'm a patriot, a bit nationalist in some things. I think I defend Spanish identity and culture. I believe it's under attack. I understand people defend their country and interests. I think every nation has something that makes it unique. And I think that true multiculturalism is that every country remains as it has always been. That means when you go to Japan, you find Japanese people. Is that what you mean? Exactly. So honestly, I don't see it as viable. The direction the world is heading, I believe that the same people, I wanted to ask about that. What is it? Do banks control it? Have they made a titanic effort to try to erase the identity of European nations from the map? The only way is to stop that. The matrix will fall when that is stopped. Identify who the enemy is, and we can be free and sovereign in our own countries. Something that's now impossible due to the media and financial system. I don't know what you think of my analysis. It's absolutely accurate, brother. I completely
agree with you. Completely. What's going on? That I always go for the general, and that's why too. It's played a
bit of a trick on me saying that. I don't think so.
That it's fine, and you can say it. You can say it, man, what you said, because you didn't mention any specific names. If we start mentioning names, probably yes. And if we also get into, let's put it this way, religions that are the majority among those who are in charge too. Forget about that, Enrique.
Do you also think that
there is an
overrepresentation of a certain religion? Of course,
the religion of the star, that religion clearly leads Hollywood because we see it in the actors, we see it everywhere. Look at who Trump has around him, and besides, it has.
Trump has been proven a sellout and traitor. To me, the left and right are just two wings of the same crow. Exactly, that the crow
is the
same one, and they direct it. You just mentioned it. I don't want to do it myself. Truly, Donald Trump entered the government with one of his biggest promises to clean up the American deep state, to leak Jeffrey Epstein's lists. Now he says, no, man.
That's a hoax they made up.
Biden.
And
I don't know who. I don't think so. A bad intention, I think. He has realized that he can't. It's entirely out of his control. His son's life depends on it, I think.
There is a...
Too many factors. Also, our perspective from here is this. When you climb a mountain, you reach the level that Donald has reached and you say, damn, I'm not justifying his betrayal. No, I'm not.
Agreeing with you, just to be clear. For me...
He's a treacherous rat. It's about understanding. It's about understanding.
Why? But it's about empathy.
He said, damn, what did they tell him and how was he involved? What if he completely exposes what's going on in the government of the United States of America? Did he have to say it's a hoax? It must be terrible. And I also say this change that I just pointed out is a change that's going to bring a lot of blood. Isn't there the change of spiritual awakening of Together Naked? I always say it, singing Imagine Me, John Lennon. We have broken free from the financial system's control. Finally, there won't be inflation. Finally, money is worth a proportion of this specific material. We won't eliminate inflation and live happily. That's unrealistic, though I'd love it.
But it exists. You're
more emotional than I am, and I value that. People like you are needed. I am an extremely realistic person. And my view, my knowledge of history, is that every great historical change of power and influence has been preceded by a war. There's no way to change things if there isn't a clash. That clash, we have to keep it as bloodless and non-violent as possible. But is it really like that?
Do you think these people are going to give up the...
power? No, to print money?
Like...
They damn well please. Before they'll do it like...
You say they'll defend themselves tooth and nail. If they have to start a war, they'll start a war. If they have to send someone to kill you, they'll send someone to kill you. They have to say that.
There's an alien invasion. Neighborhood, they'll do it.
Whatever it takes, whatever it is. As long as they protect this corrupt socioeconomic system, because they know they depend on it. So, I completely agree with you. What's going on? I also realize that the more we develop as a society, the more fields are created. Let me give you an example. Cryptocurrencies didn't exist before. For example, I'll mention Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht is a person with a big heart. A very good person, like Aaron Swartz, who grew up in a good family. He has 2 degrees and was in prison until Trump got him out. Trump, why did he get him out? I always explain, Trump didn't free him because he was a great guy or because of Ross's actions. No. He got him out because he needed the libertarian vote, and that meant more than 2 million votes. He needed them, he said. I'm going to get Ross Ulbricht out of prison. Said and done. The libertarians voted for him and he got Ross out. He kept his word, and Ross Ulbricht is a great guy. I don't know if you know him. He's the creator of Silk Road. Silk Road is the Silk Route. On the deep web, he created an alternative website where you could sell anything, but mostly drugs. But fake bills, weapons, and things like that were also sold. But in general, what was sold was drugs. Well, the thing is, what happened? What did he realize? Ross realized it was almost impossible to trace someone who paid with cryptocurrencies. Back then it was Bitcoin. People like him because Bitcoin's growth is partly due to Ross. Without Ross, the millions that moved with drugs wouldn't have moved. And what did he realize? Ross? He said the libertarian movement, which really is like that, is that everyone sells and buys what they want and lets the economy flow. You'll see more money appear than expected. That's how it is. So you have to let people sell and buy as long as it's not outrageous things. He would remove them from the website. He would take weapons off the website. And so even though I say they were being sold, it was because he couldn't control everything. But the things that were evil were definitely removed. But things that didn't harm humans, like drugs, if they want to be sold, they're going to be sold. Junkies are going to buy drugs anyway, so it doesn't matter. What did Ross realize? That the parcel and courier services, because I worked in them, at most can only inspect. And they themselves admitted only 3% of everything that moves each day. They only have the logistical capacity with their scanners and their records to inspect at most, I'm telling you, 3% of everything that is sent each day. He realized this and said, if you can only stop at most 3%, that means 97% will always arrive. So just send the drugs without the sender. You don't know its source. If they catch it, it's theirs, and you lost it. But they can't come after you since they don't know who to find. Understand? That's why he created a new market and broke the system. And all the Illuminati lodges went crazy because they said, how do we stop this? We can't stop the courier services because courier services thrive on speed. I pay you, so my package gets here in 24 hours. I pay for Amazon Prime, so it arrives the next day. Do you understand? So the courier services, we can't tell them, hey, we have to check everything, because that's not feasible. So what happened? Did the Illuminati lodges say, we need to lock this guy up? Because with the idea of combining Bitcoin and not putting a sender on the envelopes he sends, he just screwed over the whole economy. incredible because he's moving millions of dollars. It's crazy now in Bitcoin. What he created, most of it was kept by the government. He was smart and had multiple wallets, which I imagine he can still access. I hope so. He deserves it for changing the world. So what's going on? Do you really realize that Bitcoin is now almost 100,000 bucks, give or take? When he did that, man, Bitcoin wasn't even at 100 bucks. All those millions he had, just imagine what they'd be worth now. What one person with an idea can do to change the world, and sometimes it's not even an idea you'd expect. He makes something from nothing, like creating the glass before it even existed, right? I put together the glass and the bottle and make the glass bottle pack so you can drink like that. Yeah, the can and the dessert, and we set up the drink here. So what's going on? Things are just the way they are, right? Now, man, the system has this serious problem, the corrupt socioeconomic system, and the lodges know it. We live in the information age, and the more information we have about each other, and the more information we share with each other, the more we are able to create. Because it opens your mind every time you travel and see how someone else does an idea that you can do. By changing two things and combining them with what you already are, it turns into a super idea, you know? So they can't control that anymore. That's why they put Ross in without a violent crime. Brother, he got 40 years in prison plus 2 life sentences. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. It's something that wasn't even supported by law. Man, that's what I'm telling you. Things are what they are. Now, with the mind, we live in the information age, so I think a lot of what's coming now, the biggest problem isn't violence. Before, we had to solve everything with violence. The biggest problem they have now is that with ideas, man, we can have an impact on society. If we change enough minds, they can't even start a war anymore. And do you know why? Because they can create a war and turn people against each other. Because they control the economy, society, military, and weapons. Alright, brother, that's why I was telling you that things in this particular time really have more to do with ideas than with violence. And I'll explain why. Because the more people are awake and understand that wars are really organized by those rich people at the top, who are the minority, they won't accept fighting between civilizations. So, I think that's where things are heading, also now with artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and robotics. I think they know it, that there will come a point when people will refuse to fight in the armies. They won't be convinced as easily now, like when the Twin Towers were brought down, and all these armed conflicts that are happening in different places. Convincing people to kill each other will only get harder. So they're going to try to transform it and bring war to the robots, because that way humans have much less empathy. But I'll give you an example. Do you remember Julian Assange when he leaked all those videos? Exactly, with WikiLeaks, when he leaked all those videos where they were operating from different locations. It was like a video game, the United States military, helicopters dropping bombs on civilians. And they were laughing, they even lost the ability to have empathy is because it was like a video game, since they really weren't there. You don't see those families suffering, you don't hear their screams, you don't see anything. You just see a black and white image, with those images, even from thermal cameras. And so you don't have to empathize at all, because you can't really see their physical appearance. So they're realizing that more and more people are becoming more empathetic toward each other and that we're going to hurt each other less. They want to continue the armed conflicts because it benefits them financially and keeps the population divided. And what you were saying, that we really don't all come together to destroy this matrix, so what happens then? What they're trying to do now is replace it with robotics. And more, it's going to be artificial intelligence robots that go to wars to kill. And even robots like now. What are they doing with the drones controlled by humans, but from hundreds of kilometers away? So they lack empathy for the victims they kill in those conflicts. That's why I believe, and with this I'll finish, brother, that we are truly in a very different era than before, in which with our ideas we can change the corrupt socio-economic system. In so many areas that it's becoming very difficult for them to keep things the way they want. I completely understand, Enrique, I hope so.
I hope so, I really do, brother. Me too.
Realistically, I agree. It aligns more with your point. People are taking sides.
They take strong stances, and I share those views on some topics. That's because I see people have declared war on my country and me. To clarify, my country covers all of Hispanic America too. Do you include all of Latin America?
your country. I don't like the
term Latin America or Hispanic America because I believe that Hispanic identity is a single nation. It's a single unity that brings us together. Everything most important that a nation needs to have, we have it there. The South American continent is the only continent in the world where you have the paradox that you cross a border. They share a language, faith, history, and everything else, unlike any other country. China is a last territory because of its shared culture, history, and religion. Its social cohesion enables them to be a nation, just as it does in Russia. The only continent where that paradox occurs, where you cross from one border to another and it's a different country, completely independent. They can even have rivalries and possible wars. It's in South America because they've made sure to keep us separated. That's my view. When I discuss my country, I mean the Hispanic world overall, not just Spain or the Iberian Peninsula. I hope this can happen. But for that to happen, several things must occur, which I know is complicated. I agree with you on that.
It's very difficult, but at least for now. And I always emphasize that we have the opportunity because it's the information age, so that's where it slips away from them. What was I going to say? What I would like to ask you is, sorry for asking you, but I find what you just brought up very interesting. Would Brazil and Portugal be included for you? Just checking, because I am Galician, which comes from Galician Portuguese. I strongly identify with the Portuguese and can read almost everything. We, Hispanics, and
the Portuguese, it's basically the same, also known as the Iberian Union. Okay.
I support that. In Catalonia, they speak Catalan.
Portugal speaks Portuguese, and in South America, Brazil does too.
They're big and speak Portuguese. I included them too.
That doubt.
I included them too.
Perfect. Okay. For
me too, right? Because I'm telling you, actually, I'm Galician and before, but Portugal is always
spectacular. I mean, historically, it has always been. Exactly. And
in fact, that's been part of the same
empire for a long time, huh? Of course. And it was divided precisely
by sons of kings who had to divide the territory among themselves in the whole spheres
of the Anglo-Saxons, which was something I wanted to ask you about. To what extent do you think these elites and lodges mainly serve the Anglo-Saxon sphere? In the West, the one who
rules in the West, the one who rules is Anglo-Saxon. It's England. England has always been the main one. England and France are the most important. Do you think so? Who do you think?
Who runs the United States? Of course, that's where
we come in. That's where we come in. It's just that it's very complex. I'm going to say it.
The United States is the world's most powerful country, well ahead of the second, despite perceptions otherwise. Because of China, because of this and that, but technologically, militarily, the bases it has around the world. The United States is a monster, very, 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 very hard to beat in a war, practically impossible. But I don't think the United States is sovereign either. Of course, it's just that there are a country that controls thought and speech in the United States, and that's Israel. I think that, of course, the owner of the United States is owned by Israel, in my opinion. That's just how things are.
That's just how it is. But when we talk about lodges, that's the difference. The strongest influence is that of the British royal family in the West. For what reason? Well, because you already saw that they took over the United States. They were the first. They were the ones who went there to invade. And if you look at the genetic lineage of where they all come from, you see that all the royal families and where they come from, it's like from England, they all start there. But all of that comes from Europe. It all has a lot of connection, of course, with Israel, with Germany, of course, with France. But let's put it this way. The influence, because saying that one has more power than the other isn't really accurate. Because of their agreement, each country has its own people in charge. And then what about when they have global agreements? Like when there was the lockdown so that we would all fervently accept the medication, everyone accepted it. That was an agreement among the world's largest lodges, and they all agreed. Enrique, do you think
that all the European lodges also agreed to allow replacing the native population? And I don't just think so.
There is. Have you
been involved in political or cultural issues? Not really. What are your thoughts on the current geopolitical, social, and cultural climate? The low birth rate across all of Europe. Completely promoted also through movies, also through messages. Just like they've told you in your community that I'm misogynistic. I'm not misogynistic. I love women. Not my community, just some people.
People, that's why. Because my community in general wanted this, they asked me to collaborate with you. We have to be authentic. I'm not misogynistic.
What I'm saying is that they have completely denaturalized men. They have completely denaturalized women. And what about what we were conceived or created for? No, nowadays we see it as methods of oppression, both men and women. I think that has served a very clear purpose, which is, yeah, don't have children, and it's been achieved. Yesterday on the Red Pill podcast with Hincho, I said never in history has any civilization in human history ever recovered from a fertility and birth rate crisis as severe as Spain's. As of today, for a population to survive, each woman needs to have about 2 or 3 children. As of today, 1.3. No society throughout history has ever recovered from a 1.9. That's right, brother. That's
Yeah, what the hell? I mean,
the situation. Their plans is everything planned.
that's why I'm telling you that I completely agree with you. The lodges don't just allow it, they're the ones who created the invasion plan. Of course, because they need chaos, man, in order to rule. If there are no problems, how do you implement the measures? The other day I showed you a video precisely because they're installing facial recognition cameras. And where do they start putting them in? Where are they going to have the most support from people? Where? They're putting them in Ceuta and Melilla hospitals. Do you understand? And since there are so many problems with immigration, an immigration that we know perfectly well is specifically encouraged by them, we see how they escort a bunch of immigrants. Even at the ages when they're most likely to commit crimes, and those who are military aged, to be blunt.
Exactly. And they came from
the prisons, a lot of them. And then also to children between 13 and 18 years old because they can't be prosecuted. So adults also use them to commit crimes and even to order murders, as is happening in France. I don't know if you know that there are curfews and they're locking up the children with orders, specifically from the government, so that children under 16 years old are not allowed out from 11 post-meridium to 6 ante-meridium. This has existed in France for years and has now been further reinforced.
The effort, of course, and the story.
It's because adults use them. If a child commits murder, they don't go to jail. They know the laws and aren't idiots, so they're using them, and we see it the same way. We welcome them kindly because they're young, but in reality, those young people know perfectly well what Illuminati is, what they're going to cause. When you don't give them a trade or teach them anything about how to contribute to the country and you just let them go free, what are the kids going to do? Commit crimes? Look, and this reminds me of the story that Popeye used to tell. Popeye was the one who worked for Pablo Escobar. And when he says that he encouraged people to work for Pablo Escobar and made that criminal life seem so romantic, he says, I watched Scarface. The movie Scarface with Al Pacino, which is really good. And yeah, it shows you how he came from nothing. And by becoming a cocaine dealer, he makes it to the top. But he has to kill a lot of people, he has to do horrible things, but that's how he gets to the top. So they're conditioning people to become future criminals. And besides that, they create all the conditions so that people don't have education or jobs, and in the end, they end up committing crimes. So I'm telling you, the Illuminati lodges don't just let it happen or allow it to happen. This invasion of Europe is actually promoted by them, and it's been organized and planned by them for years. What you say about birth rates is absolutely true, and they did it with a multifactorial plan, like they always do. They didn't manage to get us to stop having children just by giving us lousy jobs with very little money, so we can't even afford to buy a home like our parents could. You can't move in with your girlfriend and be independent because everything is so expensive. Rents are sky high, it's crazy, and the pay for being a waiter or having a regular job is crap. Salaries keep getting worse and worse, so what's going on? First, you can't afford to support kids, so you don't want any. Second, what about this plan? People rarely mention it, but that's how it is. And this comes out in a very exquisite negative priming, which is in Boss Baby, the movie Boss Baby, where they use negative priming. How did they get people to have fewer children? By introducing pets. Even if you think it's stupid, I'm vegan, brother, I'm vegan, you don't eat meat? I don't.
I don't eat anything
of animal origin. It's not just that I don't eat meat, I don't eat anything of animal origin. I don't eat eggs, I don't eat cheese, I don't eat anything of animal origin.
Having cake for dinner is going to be tough. Well, look, so the
story is precisely in this detail. I know this. I defend animals and I love them. I can see. Still, they were putting the animals in like that and making people take care of them like babies. They dress them and take great care of them, everything. So that you act like you have a child, but you don't want to have a child. A dog requires less work than a child, can be left at home, but brings less happiness.
Speaking in English, also,
Of course, that's how you scare people. It's a multifaceted plan coming from many sides. That's why I wanted to share this. It's hard to notice, and I don't know if you'd considered it. Please be honest with me. But humanizing animals so much, and I'm vegan, I love them very much. You see that I have nothing against animals, I'm just telling you what they use to make us not conceive as much, which is to humanize animals so that people forget. Why do they have up to 3 dogs but not a child? Let me ask you, don't you?
Is the vegan narrative part of the humanization of animals? No, the vegan narrative.
Everything has 2 sides, positive and negative, even the vegan narrative. Of course, they realized that we were discovering that veganism is much healthier. We're not going to talk to each other like that. Yeah, we could talk about a lot of things like that. Vitamin B12, for example, is given to animals, but are you saying that it's
Healthier to be vegan? Look at me, look at me.
I go to the gym, so look at me, I don't have much muscle or fat. I wake up and my abs are visible. Can you see yours or no? Well,
That.
I'm telling you, brother, be careful. Let's go to the gym and see how much each of us can lift. But it doesn't matter. This isn't a competition about who does what. It's about that. It's about trying to make people understand. I'm not telling you that eating animals is super bad or anything like that. Understand me? But I'm showing you how veganism, when they realize that we don't want to promote that. Exactly why? Because there's something really bad about eating animals that they don't tell you. It's not just that they give animals vitamin B12 and we get it from them, but why do they give it to the animals? Because the animal actually gets vitamin B12 when it grazes out there, like that. So I supplement and take a B12 pill to meet that need. I don't have to eat anything from animals. I mean, are you admitting that?
The ancestral nature of humans is to eat animals, because if you didn't take a supplement, you wouldn't be able to get that vitamin? No, because of the cow.
Where it gets that B12 is when it's grazing, and if you graze, not grazing like a cow, but picking and eating the vegetation, like dogs do when they go out to my garden, my dog does it, the cat does it, and everything, you would be getting B12 naturally. You wouldn't need supplementation, so you don't need the animal at all. This is something that most people don't know. Okay, putting that aside, why don't we turn this into something about veganism? I'm one of those who defend you and say people should eat meat if they truly want to. But it's good that we know how to tell one thing from another. Because they're not promoting veganism for nothing. They're promoting it because what they want is to divert healthy veganism, which I like everything vegan unless it's, E900, that E900 stuff and so on. And without disgusting synthetic meats like the ones Bill Gates makes and all that. They noticed we began eating healthier. And then they said, damn, the vegans, we have no way to poison them anymore. We have to make crappy vegan food, So that's why the vegan Burger King option started coming out, the vegan McDonald's option and so on. Do you get what I'm saying? Bill Gates' bad meat, all those vegan products with even more ingredients than regular ones. They're already poisoning you. And that's why I understand that some people interpret veganism as crap, but no. If you do veganism right, you don't have to eat that crap. And then I'll tell you something else, which is a little detail that people don't know and that encourages us to behave worse and to be more depressed. We naturally produce the cortisol, the stress hormone. Animals, before they die, see their brothers die and suffer a lot in the conditions in which they are treated. When chickens, pigs, cows, and others are transported, they suffer greatly knowing they'll die and watching their brothers die in front of them. Then there are others who mistreat them and so on. But, those are even darker things because people who work there get unbalanced from killing so many animals and so on, I did interviews with some of them and you'd be shocked at how badly they have it. Slaughterhouse workers often become cocaine addicts or alcoholics because witnessing animal treatment really affects them. Every day, they kill them with the babies inside before they give birth. Really crazy stuff, man. And, the thing is that the animal, from suffering so much before being slaughtered, produces cortisol and it spreads throughout its whole body. The stress hormone. When you eat chicken breast or that bloody beef you like I did when I ate meat. I've been vegan since I was 27, not out of conviction, but because I got Crohn's disease and had severe stomach pain. When I became vegan, it went away. That's why I chose veganism, but now I do it on principle. Okay. But I started for that reason. So I'm authentic. You're giving the...
Calling it murder? Exactly. You're a murderer. That's right, murder. Veganism's problem, I tell you, is they try to force their views on others. Let me tell you something. I have a big criticism against the meat industry. I think things could be done in a better way. That doesn't mean eating meat isn't healthy. I believe 200,000 people suffered from depression or poor physical health, who started eating good meat from well cared for cows and pastures and so on. And they truly have more strength, both mentally and physically. Meat is good, meat is there. As a Christian, I tell you that anything done properly benefits the body. What I don't get is the vegans' attitude when they tell us we're committing murder. To begin with, that's already humanizing the animal. You don't murder an animal, you can take its life, you can kill it. Is murder a legal term? Yes, those who don't hunt with animals, that's the reality, and I am in.
I agree with you, which is why I explain this to people. I'm not a radical, and it hurts most that people argue about these things. But I was just explaining the cortisol thing to you because of this detail, because I noticed it when I stopped eating meat and fish. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and animals, even fish, experience severe stress before dying, just like you would if removed from your environment. Going deep makes their eyes swell and removes them from their environment, causing them to suffer. So, all that blood full of cortisol, when you eat chicken breast or steak, whatever it is, you're eating that cortisol. Which adds to your own natural cortisol, which on a bad day is already like this, right? So I noticed, and I'm just saying this as a comment, I noticed that I became calmer and, let's say, a more patient and less impulsive person. When I stopped eating animal protein, I was consuming less cortisol, which I realized later, you know? Do you understand me? That aside, I want to make it clear here in front of everyone. I'm not a radical. In fact, I really enjoyed eating meat. Because of me, many animals died. I ate a lot of cows. A lot. I loved it, especially pork churrasco. I loved it, and I loved beef steaks. Man, so that's why what I try to do is bring people together so that people understand us. That's all. I respect everyone.
Veganism will gain acceptance if you don't force it on others. Exactly, and
That's my point, the imposition. I dislike anyone imposing things, yours or mine. If you respect me, I don't care if you eat meat. Brother, I don't care, you know? And I get it, and I really enjoyed eating meat, so I'm going to respect you and I'm going to care about you. Now, if you ask me why I don't do it, I'll answer you, and that's it. Yes, I understand. Well,
Enrique, we still need to do another podcast talking about transhumanism, okay? We'll set the dates and we'll do it. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure spending this time with you. Enrique, thanks for coming. Now we're going to access the exclusive section of my private community. Me, with all the number of people I have. Gentlemen, believe me, there's one thing I would say you should reconsider. Many times when you charge a low fee to someone so you can be more on top of them, give them more information. You do more than just provide generic content. Consider that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm going to leave the link to the private community down below. Now come the questions all the bears in my community have asked great Enrique. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time. Bye-bye. Until next time. Bye, bye.